Hey everyone, it's Sophia here, and I wanted to share something truly special with you today. It's one of those little moments that just sticks with you, you know? I was driving home from work the other day, and honestly, it had been a bit of a long one. I was feeling tired, a little stressed, just ready to be home. And then, as I turned the corner onto my street, I saw it. The most breathtaking sunset I think I've ever seen. The sky was awash in these incredible shades of pink and orange, with hints of deep purple and a soft, golden glow just peeking through the clouds. Honestly, it felt like magic. Everything else just faded away, the traffic, the long day, all of it. It was just me and this incredible display of nature's beauty. It was so soothing, so calming, just what I needed after a hectic day. And you know what? It reminded me how important it is to appreciate those small, beautiful moments in life. They're everywhere, just waiting to be discovered. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together with this beautiful story. I release new videos daily, focusing on English speaking and listening skills, to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, picture this. It was a drizzly Tuesday, you know, the kind where the sky is this thick, gray blanket, and the air smells like wet pavement and damp leaves. I was walking back from the library, arms loaded with books. Seriously, I think I'd checked out half the biography section, and I was absolutely freezing. My gloves were soaked through, my nose was running, and I was just generally feeling pretty miserable. Like, why me? Kind of miserable. You know what I mean? Anyway, I was struggling along, trying to balance this precarious tower of books, when I saw her. She was an older woman, probably in her late 70s, maybe even 80s, and she was practically buried under a mountain of shopping bags. I mean, these weren't your average grocery bags. These were those giant, reinforced plastic ones, the kind you get at department stores. They were overflowing with stuff. I couldn't even see what was in them, but they looked heavy, like really heavy. She was shuffling along slowly, her back bent under the weight, her face strained with effort. And, you know, something about the way she was moving, this sort of determined but fragile little shuffle, just tugged at me. I couldn't explain it. It was like watching a tiny bird trying to fly in a hurricane. I had to do something. So, I kind of hesitated for a second. My own arms were already aching, and the thought of adding even more weight was daunting, to say the least. But then, I thought, what's a few extra pounds compared to what she's carrying? And, honestly, what kind of person would I be if I just walked past and pretended not to see her struggling? It just didn't feel right. So, I took a deep breath, swallowed my inner wimp, and walked over to her. "Excuse me," I said, my voice probably a bit shaky from the cold, "do you need any help with those bags?" She looked up at me, and I'll never forget her eyes. They were this incredible shade of blue, like faded denim, but still bright, still sharp. They held a mix of surprise, relief, and, I think, a touch of suspicion. Which, you know, fair enough. A stranger offering to help carry your bags in a big city? It's not exactly an everyday occurrence. She hesitated for a moment, her lips pursed, as if weighing her options. Then, she gave this tiny, almost imperceptible nod and managed a small, "Oh, that would be so kind of you, dear." And that was it. I carefully took a couple of the heaviest-looking bags from her, and wow, they were heavy. I could feel the plastic handles digging into my palms, my fingers starting to go numb. But, you know, I just gritted my teeth and kept going. We walked together slowly, the rhythm of our footsteps echoing on the wet pavement. The silence between us wasn't awkward, though. It was comfortable, somehow. Like a shared understanding. After a few minutes, she started to talk. Her name was Mrs. Rodriguez, and she was on her way back from visiting her daughter. She'd been shopping for her grandchildren. The bags were full of clothes, toys, and what smelled like freshly baked cookies. She told me about her grandkids, their ages, their personalities, their favorite colors. She spoke with such love and pride, her voice softening whenever she mentioned their names. It was heartwarming, you know? And as we walked, she started to tell me about her life. She'd lived in the city her entire life, witnessed its transformation, its highs and lows. She'd been a teacher for over 40 years, shaping young minds, inspiring generations. She spoke about her late husband, her voice filled with a quiet fondness, a gentle ache. She shared stories of their travels, their adventures, their simple joys. Listening to her, I felt this strange connection. Like I was being given a glimpse into a life richly lived, a life full of stories and experiences. And it struck me how easily these stories could be lost, how easily these lives could go unnoticed. It made me think about how often we rush past people on the street, caught up in our own little worlds, oblivious to the rich tapestry of lives unfolding all around us. We finally reached her apartment building, a stately old brownstone with a grand entrance and intricate ironwork. It looked like the kind of place with stories hidden in every corner, every creak of the floorboards. As we stepped inside, the warm air hit me like a wave, washing away the chill. The lobby was dimly lit, with ornate chandeliers and velvet-covered furniture. It smelled faintly of cinnamon and old books. It felt like stepping back in time. I helped Mrs. Rodriguez carry her bags up to her apartment, which was on the 3rd floor. No elevator, of course. So, we climbed the wide, winding staircase, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. By the time we reached her door, my arms were screaming, my legs were burning, and I was pretty sure I was sweating through my coat. But it didn't matter. Not really. Because as I placed the bags down on her doorstep, Mrs. Rodriguez turned to me, her eyes shining with gratitude, and said, "Thank you, dear. You have no idea how much this means to me." And in that moment, I knew that carrying those bags wasn't just about helping an elderly woman. It was about connection. It was about empathy. It was about recognizing the humanity in another person and offering a small act of kindness. And you know what? It felt good. Really, really good. It was a small thing, a simple gesture, but it made a difference. Not just for Mrs. Rodriguez, but for me too. It reminded me that even on the dreariest of days, even when I'm feeling my worst, there's always an opportunity to make a connection, to offer a helping hand, to brighten someone's day. And in doing so, to brighten my own. So, yeah, that's the story of the day I helped someone carry bags. It wasn't just about the bags, you see? It was about so much more. It was about, well, about life, I guess. And the little moments that make it all worthwhile. You know what I mean? Okay. So, grab a cuppa. Settle in, because this is a story. A saga, really. The saga of the jewelry organizer. You see, I've always been, how'd I put this, jewelry adjacent. I love the idea of delicate necklaces, sparkly earrings, those chunky bracelets that jingle when you walk. But my reality? A tangled mess. A chaotic explosion of silver and gold in a drawer. You know, the kind where you're rummaging for a specific earring and end up pulling out a necklace knotted around 5 others and a stray button? Yeah, that drawer. It was stressing me out. Seriously, every morning was a mini crisis. And the tangled necklaces? Don't even get me started. It was like they were breeding in there. Multiplying. Plotting my downfall. Okay, maybe that's dramatic, but you get the picture. It was bad. So, one Saturday, I decided, enough is enough. I'm tackling this beast. I'm going to make a jewelry organizer. A beautiful, functional, organized jewelry organizer. Now, I'm not exactly handy. My DIY skills are, let's just say, developing. But I was fueled by a potent mix of frustration and Pinterest inspiration. Dangerous, I know. First stop, the internet. Oh, the glorious rabbit hole of DIY jewelry organizers. There were rustic ones made from reclaimed wood, sleek modern designs with metal and glass, even repurposed picture frames. I spent hours, scrolling, pinning, sighing. So many options. I finally settled on a relatively simple design. A framed piece of lace or fabric, with little hooks for necklaces and earrings. Seemed doable, right? Famous last words. Next, the supply run. This is where things started to get interesting. I envisioned this charming little antique shop, overflowing with vintage lace and ornate frames. The reality? My local craft store, which, don't get me wrong, is great. But it's less shabby chic, and more glitter explosion. I wandered the aisles, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of stuff. Glitter glue, pom-poms, felt of every imaginable color. It was sensory overload. I could practically hear the crafting fairies whispering, "Buy more glitter. Embrace the pom-poms." Eventually, after much deliberation, and a near purchase of a giant bag of googly eyes, don't ask, I found some pretty floral fabric, a simple wooden frame, and a pack of tiny hooks. Success. I was feeling optimistic. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. Back home, I laid out my supplies on the dining table. The fabric, the frame, the hooks, and a hammer. Now, I have a complicated relationship with hammers. Let's just say we haven't always seen eye to eye. I've been known to miss the nail entirely and hit my thumb instead. More than once. But I was determined. I took a deep breath and hammered. And, surprisingly, it worked. The hooks went in relatively straight. No mangled fingers. I was practically a professional. Next, the fabric. This, I thought, would be the easy part. Just staple it to the back of the frame, right? Wrong. So wrong. The fabric kept bunching. The staples wouldn't go in straight. It was a wrinkled, lumpy mess. I took it out, tried again. Same result. My initial optimism was starting to fade. I was beginning to resemble the tangled mess of necklaces I was trying to escape. I took a break, made myself a cup of tea, stared out the window. The birds were chirping, the sun was shining. They seemed to have their lives together. Unlike me, who was wrestling with a piece of floral fabric and a staple gun. Then, a light bulb moment. What if I glued the fabric instead of stapling it? I rummaged through the kitchen drawers and found a tube of fabric glue. It was half-dried and probably expired, but hey, desperate times. I carefully applied the glue, smoothed the fabric onto the frame, and it worked. It actually worked. The fabric was taut, smooth, and perfectly in place. I felt a surge of triumph. Take that, crafting fairies. The final step. Hanging the jewelry. This was the moment of truth. I carefully unraveled my necklaces, one by one, painstakingly separating them from their tangled embrace. It was like therapy, but with more sparkle. I hung them on the hooks, admiring their newfound freedom. Then the earrings, each pair dangling neatly, no longer lost in the depths of the dreaded drawer. And there it was. My DIY jewelry organizer. It wasn't perfect. It was a little crooked. The fabric wasn't perfectly centered, and there were a few stray glue marks. But it was mine, and it was glorious. I stood back and admired my handiwork. The tangled mess was gone, replaced by order, by beauty, by a sense of accomplishment. It was more than just a jewelry organizer. It was a symbol of my triumph over chaos. A testament to my burgeoning DIY skills. A beacon of hope in a world of tangled necklaces. Okay, maybe that's a little much. But you know what I mean? It's amazing how such a small thing can make such a big difference. My mornings are no longer a frantic search for matching earrings. My necklaces are no longer engaged in a perpetual wrestling match. And my friend, I am no longer jewelry adjacent. I am a jewelry connoisseur. Okay, maybe not a connoisseur, but definitely a more organized human being. And that, my friend, is worth celebrating. Now, who wants more tea? And maybe we can tackle that pile of yarn in the corner next. Just kidding, unless, winking face. Learning languages opens hearts and minds, and isn't that such a beautiful thought? It really struck me the other day because it's so true. When you connect with another language, you connect with a whole new world of people, ideas, and experiences. It broadens your horizons and gives you a fresh perspective on things. So, embrace this journey with open arms, because every step you take brings you closer to fluency and a deeper understanding of the world. And you know what? You can make this journey even more fun and effective with simple daily practices. Have you ever thought about repeating dialogues from advertisements? Honestly, it's such a game changer. Think about it. They're short, catchy, and often repeated. So next time you hear a commercial while cooking or on your walk, try speaking along. It's an effortless way to improve your pronunciation and intonation without even realizing you're practicing. Do you also find yourself getting tongue-tied during interviews, even when you understand the questions perfectly? I totally get it. It can be so frustrating when nerves take over and you struggle to express yourself. That moment of silence feels like an eternity, and it can really knock your confidence. But trust me, you're not alone in this. It's a common experience for many language learners. Remember, every stumble is a step forward. Now, something I've been thinking about lately. I remember once trying to order food in Spanish, and I realized I was translating everything in my head before speaking. It made the whole process so much slower and less natural. It made me wonder, do you practice English by thinking in the language or translating? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Share your experiences in the comments below. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you just need to escape? Like, truly escape the everyday humdrum? Well, that's how I was feeling a few weeks ago. Work had been crazy, the weather was dreary, and I just felt blah. Then, like a gift from the universe, I saw a poster. A vibrant, swirling poster advertising the annual Festival of 1,000 Lanterns. It promised music, food, and, well, 1,000 lanterns. How could I resist? So, that Saturday, I decided, that's it. I'm going. And you won't believe what happened. The festival was held in this gorgeous park, nestled just outside the city. I took the train, which was already an adventure in itself, packed with families chattering excitedly and groups of friends giggling. The air thrummed with anticipation, you know? It was infectious. As I stepped off the train, the first thing that hit me was the smell. This incredible mix of spices and sweet treats, like cinnamon and roasted nuts and something floral, maybe jasmine? It was intoxicating. And the sounds. Music drifted through the air, this lively, almost tribal beat punctuated by the delighted shrieks of children. The park entrance was like stepping into another world. Strings of colorful flags flapped in the breeze, welcoming visitors into this vibrant tapestry of sights and sounds. There were stalls everywhere, draped in rich fabrics, overflowing with handcrafted jewelry, intricately carved wooden toys, and clothes in colors I'd never even seen before. I felt a little overwhelmed, I'll admit, but in the best possible way. Like a kid in a candy store, but instead of candy, it was culture. I wandered around for a while, just soaking it all in. I watched a craftsman patiently shaping clay into delicate figurines, mesmerized by the way his hands moved. I listened to a storyteller weave tales of mythical creatures and brave heroes, completely captivated by his expressive voice. I even tried my hand at archery, and, well, let's just say I'm not exactly Katniss Everdeen. My arrow landed with a pathetic thud about 2 feet in front of me. The instructor, this sweet old lady with twinkling eyes, just chuckled and patted my shoulder. "Practice makes perfect," she said, her voice thick with an accent I couldn't quite place. I sampled some of the food, of course. And oh my goodness, the food. There were these little dumplings filled with spiced vegetables, drizzled with a tangy sauce that just exploded with flavor. I had some kind of flatbread, warm and fluffy, with this incredible herbed cheese spread on top. And the chai, warm, fragrant, the perfect antidote to the slight chill in the air. I was in foodie heaven, I tell you. As the afternoon wore on, the crowds grew larger, the atmosphere even more electric. There were dancers in elaborate costumes, twirling and leaping to the rhythmic beat of the drums. There were acrobats performing incredible feats of strength and balance, defying gravity with seemingly effortless grace. I even saw a fire eater. I mean, seriously, a fire eater. It was absolutely mesmerizing, terrifying, and exhilarating, all at the same time. And then, as dusk began to settle, it was time for the lanterns. Everyone gathered around this large, open space in the center of the park. The anticipation was palpable. You could feel the excitement humming in the air. Children clutched their parents' hands, their eyes wide with wonder. Couples huddled together, whispering excitedly. And me? I was standing there, heart pounding, completely lost in the moment. Then, one by one, the lanterns were released. Hundreds, then thousands, of glowing orbs rising into the darkening sky. They danced on the breeze, like tiny stars come down to earth. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, a kaleidoscope of colors against the indigo backdrop of the twilight sky. It was breathtaking, truly breathtaking. I just stood there, mesmerized. Tears welled up in my eyes, I don't even know why. It was just so beautiful, so magical. It felt like all the stress, all the worries, everything that had been weighing me down, just melted away. In that moment, surrounded by the warm glow of 1,000 lanterns, I felt a sense of peace and connection I hadn't felt in a long time. But you know what the most surprising thing was? It wasn't just the spectacle of the lanterns themselves. It was the people. Everyone was smiling. Strangers were exchanging glances of shared wonder. There was this sense of unity, of shared joy, that was just incredible. You know what I mean? It was like we were all connected, all part of something bigger than ourselves. And then, guess what happened? As I was standing there, lost in thought, I bumped into someone. I mumbled an apology, expecting a grumpy response, but instead, I was met with a warm smile. It was a young woman, about my age, with bright, laughing eyes and a colorful scarf wrapped around her head. We started chatting, about the festival, about life, about everything and nothing. We ended up spending the rest of the evening together, wandering through the park, sharing stories, and laughing until our sides hurt. Her name was Anya, and she was visiting from another country. It was just a chance encounter, a fleeting connection in the midst of the crowd, but it made the whole experience even more special. Now, you might be thinking, oh, it's a love story. Well, not exactly. We exchanged numbers, but honestly, I don't know if anything will come of it. And that's okay, because the real magic of that day wasn't about meeting someone new. It was about rediscovering a sense of wonder, of joy, of connection. It was about escaping the ordinary and embracing the extraordinary. The Festival of 1,000 Lanterns wasn't just a festival, it was an experience. It was a reminder that even in the midst of the everyday, there's still magic to be found. You just have to be open to it. So, yeah, that's my story. The day I visited the Festival of 1,000 Lanterns. It might sound cheesy, I know, but it truly was a day I'll never forget. It reminded me of the importance of slowing down, of appreciating the small things, of connecting with others, and of allowing myself to be swept away by the beauty and wonder of the world around me. And who knows, maybe next year, you'll join me. It would be an adventure, wouldn't it? Okay, so, you know how some memories just stick with you. Like, they're etched in your brain in vivid technicolor, even though they happened ages ago? Learning to ride my bike is totally one of those memories. I must have been, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years old. It was a scorcher of a summer day, the kind where the air shimmers above the asphalt and you can practically fry an egg on the sidewalk. Remember those summers? Our street, Maple Drive, was pretty quiet back then, just rows of little houses with tidy lawns and the occasional grumpy old dog barking from behind a picket fence. My bike, oh man, it was a beauty. Bright, cherry red, with sparkly white streamers on the handlebars. It was a hand-me-down from my older brother, Mike. He'd outgrown it, and it felt gigantic to little me. I remember thinking it looked more like a motorcycle than a bicycle. I'd been pestering my dad for weeks to teach me how to ride. He was patient, bless his heart, but also, you know, a dad. Practical. He'd tried the whole running alongside and holding the seat thing a few times, but I just ended up wobbling all over the place, screaming and clinging to him for dear life. It wasn't pretty. I think he secretly feared I'd take him down with me. So, this particular Saturday, he decided on a new approach. He took off the training wheels, those little metal crutches that had given me a false sense of security, and said, "All right, kiddo. Time to fly solo." Fly solo? I felt like I was about to be pushed out of a plane without a parachute. He walked me and the bike over to the patch of grass at the end of our street. It wasn't exactly a lush, green meadow, mind you. More like patchy, dry grass with a few stubborn dandelions poking through. But it was softer than the asphalt, which I appreciated. "Okay," Dad said, holding the bike steady. "Just push off with your feet, keep your eyes looking ahead, and try to balance." Easy for him to say. He'd been riding bikes since he was, like, 2, I swear. I took a deep breath, gripped the handlebars so tight my knuckles turned white, and pushed off. Wobble, wobble, thud, yup, straight onto the grass. Not exactly a graceful start. The grass, thankfully, cushioned the fall. I Remember the smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the slightly metallic scent of the bike. This happened, oh, I don't know, maybe a dozen times? Each time, I'd get a little further, wobble a little less violently, and then, bam! Down I'd go. My knees were getting grass-stained, my palms were scraped, and my confidence was definitely taking a hit. I remember thinking, maybe I'm just not meant to ride a bike. Maybe I'll stick to roller skates. My dad, though, he was persistent. He kept encouraging me, telling me I was getting better with each try, reminding me to look ahead, not down at my feet. You got this, he'd say. Just a little more balance. Honestly, I wasn't so sure. Then, something shifted. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was pure stubbornness. Maybe it was the fear of disappointing my dad. Maybe it was just the sheer will to conquer this two-wheeled beast. I pushed off again, harder this time. I pedaled, awkwardly at first, then with a bit more rhythm. I kept my eyes fixed on the big oak tree at the end of the street, like it was my north star, and I stayed up, not just for a few seconds, but for a whole, glorious minute. I was actually riding. The wind whipped through my hair, the sun warmed my face, and a huge, goofy grin spread across my face. I felt like I was flying. It was exhilarating. I rode in a wobbly circle around the grassy patch, then another, gaining confidence with each revolution. I remember hearing my dad cheering, "That's it. You're doing it," and the sound of Mrs. Henderson, our next-door neighbor, clapping from her porch. I rode and rode until my legs burned and my breath came in short gasps. I finally came to a stop, a little shaky, but triumphant. I looked back at my dad, and he was beaming. It was one of those proud dad moments, you know? The kind that makes you feel like you can conquer anything. That day wasn't just about learning to ride a bike. It was about overcoming fear, about perseverance, about the sweet taste of accomplishment. And, honestly, it was about that feeling of pure, unadulterated joy. The kind that comes from mastering something you thought was impossible. I rode that red bike everywhere after that. Up and down Maple Drive, to the park, to the corner store for penny candy. It became my trusty steed, my symbol of freedom. Every scratch and dent on it told a story. A reminder of that hot summer day when I finally learned to fly. You know what I mean? It's funny how such a seemingly small moment can have such a big impact. It's a feeling I still chase, that feeling of wind in my hair and the world at my feet. And it all started with a wobbly red bike and a patient dad on a patch of scraggly grass. Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But remember, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes progress. Think about it. Every single time you speak, read, or even listen to English, you're taking another step forward. You're building those skills, brick by brick, and that's something to be incredibly proud of. It's not about instant perfection, it's about the journey and the amazing progress you're making every single day. You've got this, and you know what? Here's a fun little practice idea. Give pretend product reviews. Imagine you just bought a new pen, tried a new recipe, or even took a walk in a new park. Now, just talk about it out loud, like you're reviewing it for others. It's so simple, you can do it anywhere, while you're cooking dinner, walking the dog, or even waiting for the bus. It's a fantastic way to practice speaking without even realizing you're doing it. Honestly, it feels like magic. I know sometimes it can be frustrating. Struggling with cultural references in conversation is something I think many of us can relate to. Hearing a joke or an idiom fly right over your head can be a little disheartening. It can make you feel like you're not quite getting it, even when you understand the individual words. But trust me, you're not alone in this, and it's all part of the learning process. Speaking of conversations, you will not believe what happened next. I was at the coffee shop the other day, and totally froze when I tried to start a chat with the barista. It got me thinking, what's your go-to sentence to start a conversation in English? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas and maybe steal a few for myself. Let's all help each other out. Okay, so, you are never going to believe what happened to me. It all started with laundry. Laundry, of all things. See, I'm a creature of habit. You know how it is, right? You find something that works, and you stick with it. For years, I've used the same old detergent, The one with the little blue scoop. Boring, predictable, but it got the job done. Or so I thought. Then, last week, I was at the grocery store, and I saw this new detergent. The packaging was all bright and shiny, promising, radiant clean, and vibrant colors. Honestly, it looked a bit extra. Like, who needs radiant clean laundry? But, for some reason, maybe it was the catchy jingle playing in my head from their commercial, I felt this sudden urge to be adventurous. Yes, adventurous with laundry detergent. Don't judge me. So, I grabbed this massive box. It felt like I was lifting a small child, and tossed it into my cart. It was called Sunshine Burst, and the box was this vibrant yellow with little cartoon suns all over it. Even the scent wafting from the little vent holes was intense. It smelled like a tropical fruit salad. Exploded in a field of wildflowers. A bit much, maybe, but intriguing. Back home, I couldn't wait to try it. My laundry basket was overflowing, a testament to my busy week. You know, the usual. Gym clothes, work outfits, my favorite cozy blanket that I swear I only use for emergencies. Which, let's be honest, is every evening. I felt like a mad scientist about to conduct a groundbreaking experiment. I even put on my silly, kiss the cook, apron, just for the dramatic effect. I followed the instructions religiously, measuring out the powder, which, by the way, was this crazy, electric blue color, like something out of a sci-fi movie, and poured it into the washing machine. The scent hit me immediately, even before I closed the lid. It was powerful, overpowering, almost. I hoped my clothes wouldn't smell like I'd bathed in a vat of fruit punch. As the washing machine whirred and gurgled, I imagined my clothes being transformed, their colors bursting back to life, radiant and vibrant, just like the box promised. I even peeked through the little window a few times, mesmerized by the swirling, blue-tinged water. I know, I'm easily amused. Finally, the buzzer rang. The moment of truth. With a flourish, I opened the lid. And, oh, my goodness, you would not believe what I saw. Instead of the pristine, radiant clean I was expecting, my clothes were covered in foam. Mountains of it. It was like a giant bubble bath had exploded inside my washing machine. Fluffy, white foam overflowing onto the floor, spilling out like an avalanche. I stood there, dumbfounded, staring at the sudsy chaos, the tropical fruit wildflower scent now hitting me with the force of 1,000 tiny fists. My first thought? I broke the washing machine. My second? How am I going to explain this to my landlord? My third, and perhaps the most pressing, how on earth am I going to get rid of all this foam? I mean, it was everywhere. It was like a scene from a wacky cartoon. I grabbed a towel and started scooping it out, but it was like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teacup. The more I scooped, the more foam seemed to appear. It was like a never-ending supply of bubbles. I felt like I was trapped in a bizarre, soapy nightmare. I called my best friend, Sarah, practically in tears. She, being the practical one, suggested I run the rinse cycle again, and again, and again, until all the foam was gone. So, that's what I did. I spent the next hour or so, basically babysitting my washing machine, running rinse cycle after rinse cycle, watching the suds slowly, agonizingly disappear. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the washing machine was foam-free. I cautiously opened the lid, half expecting to see my clothes still covered in bubbles, or worse, somehow disintegrated into a pile of soapy mush. But, no, they were there, slightly damp, and, surprisingly clean. Like, really clean. And they smelled, well, they still smelled strongly of tropical fruit and wildflowers, but it was a slightly less aggressive scent now, more like a gentle breeze through a tropical garden, rather than a full-blown fruit salad explosion. I carefully transferred my clothes to the dryer, still a bit shaken by the whole ordeal. As they tumbled, the scent filled my laundry room, and then my entire apartment. It was a lot. My cat, usually indifferent to everything, started sneezing uncontrollably. I opened a window, hoping to air the place out a bit. When the dryer finally finished, I hesitantly pulled out my clothes. And you know what? They were amazing. Soft, fluffy, and yes, even radiant. The colors were brighter, more vibrant. My old, faded t-shirts looked almost new. Even my cozy blanket felt extra soft and snuggly. So, yeah, the whole sunshine burst experience was a bit dramatic. A bit chaotic. A bit like a soapy, sudsy, tropical fruit wildflower explosion in my laundry room. But the end result? Well, it was undeniable. My clothes had never looked cleaner. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be using sunshine burst every time I do laundry. It's a bit much for everyday use, you know what I mean? And I'm definitely going to be using a much smaller amount next time. Like, maybe a teaspoon. But, I have to admit, it did give my laundry routine a little bit of excitement. A little bit of sunshine, I guess. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need, right? Even if it comes with a side of sudsy chaos. So, have you tried any new detergents lately? Any explosive experiences you'd like to share? I'm all ears. Okay. So, you know how sometimes you have these childhood dreams that seem so huge and glamorous, almost mythical? For me, it was riding a horse. I mean, riding a horse. Not just a pony ride at the fair, but real riding, like in the movies. Hair flying, wind whipping past my face. You get the picture, right? So, I must have been around 10, maybe 11. My Aunt Carol, bless her heart, she was always trying to make my dreams come true. And she knew how much I wanted this. So one sunny Saturday, she drove me out to this farm, Green Acres Riding Stable. I remember the name so clearly because it sounded like something straight out of a cheesy TV show, which, looking back, it kind of was. The drive itself felt epic. Every cow we passed, every field of green, it was all part of this build-up to my grand equestrian debut. I was practically vibrating with excitement. You know that fizzy feeling, like when you shake up a soda bottle? That was me. We pulled into this dusty driveway, and the smell hit me first. That wonderfully earthy mix of hay, horse, and something slightly sweeter. Molasses, maybe? I still can't quite place it, but it's forever imprinted in my memory as horse smell. There were horses everywhere, of course. Big ones, small ones, dappled ones, sleek brown ones. I was mesmerized. I'd seen horses before, obviously, but never so many, so close. Aunt Carol went to talk to a woman who looked like she'd been born in a saddle, weathered face, strong hands, no-nonsense kind of lady. This was Marge, the owner, and my soon-to-be riding instructor. Marge looked me up and down, a little skeptical, I think. I was a skinny little thing, all elbows and knees, probably looking more like a startled sparrow than a future Olympian. She asked me if I'd ever ridden before. Nope, I chirped, probably a little too eagerly. She gave a small nod and pointed towards a gentle-looking brown and white horse. That's Buttercup, she said. She's a good girl. Buttercup. Honestly, I was slightly disappointed. I'd envisioned myself atop a fiery steed, a black stallion with a flowing mane. Buttercup was, well, she was definitely more on the butter side of things. Plump, placid, and with a slightly bored expression. Getting on Buttercup was an experience. Marge held her steady while I attempted to hoist myself up. My legs were too short, my arms too weak. It was like trying to climb a furry, four-legged hill. After a few ungraceful attempts, and a barely suppressed snort from Marge, I finally managed to scramble into the saddle, feeling about as elegant as a sack of potatoes. And then, I was up. Whoa, it was higher than I thought. The ground seemed miles away. Buttercup shifted slightly beneath me, and I gripped the reins like my life depended on it. My heart was thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Marge showed me how to hold the reins, how to use my legs to signal Buttercup, the whole shebang. It sounded simple enough. Just a gentle squeeze, she said. She'll know what to do. Famous last words, right? I squeezed. Buttercup did something. It wasn't quite walking, more like a slow, shuffling sideways motion. Then, she stopped. Just stopped. I squeezed again, harder this time. Nothing. I nudged her with my heels, like Marge had shown me. Still nothing. Buttercup just stood there, chewing contentedly on something invisible, probably contemplating the meaning of life. I glanced over at Marge, who was watching with a mixture of amusement and, Think, a touch of pity. She's not moving, I whispered, feeling my cheeks flush with embarrassment. Marge sighed, a sound like air leaking out of a tire. You have to mean it, she said, her voice a little louder this time. Give her a good kick. A good kick? That sounded a little violent. But, desperate times, right? I gave Buttercup what I considered a good kick. Guess what happened next? She took off, not at a gallop, thankfully, but a brisk trot that sent me bouncing around in the saddle like a rubber ball. I grabbed the reins tighter, my knuckles turning white. My carefully constructed image of graceful riding evaporated faster than a puddle in the desert sun. I was clinging on for dear life, my eyes squeezed shut, convinced I was about to be launched into orbit. The trot turned into a walk, then a stop. I cautiously opened my eyes. We were at the other end of the paddock. Somehow, miraculously, I was still in the saddle. Buttercup had stopped by the fence, munching on some grass, looking as unfazed as ever. Marge walked over, shaking her head but smiling. See, not so bad, is it? Not so bad? I repeated, my voice a little shaky. I thought I was going to die. She chuckled. You'll get the hang of it, she assured me. And you know what? I did. Slowly, painstakingly, over the next hour, I started to get a feel for it. The bouncing became less violent, the reins felt less like lifelines. I even managed to steer Buttercup in a vaguely circular direction. By the end of the lesson, I was exhausted, aching, covered in dust, and exhilarated. It wasn't the glamorous, movie star riding I'd dreamed of, but it was real. It was messy, and awkward, and a little scary, but it was also magical. That feeling of being up there, connected to this powerful, gentle creature, it was something I'd never experienced before. The rhythm of her hooves on the ground, the warmth of her flanks beneath my legs, the slight breeze rustling through her mane. It all created this sense of freedom, I guess. A connection to something bigger than myself. As I climbed down, legs wobbly, I knew I was hooked. Buttercup, bless her plump, placid heart, had opened up a whole new world for me. It wasn't the perfect, romanticized version I'd had in my head, but it was real, and it was mine. And that, that made all the difference. So, yeah, that's the story of my first time riding a horse. It wasn't pretty, but it was definitely memorable. What about you? Any epic first-time stories you'd like to share? Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for spending this time with me. It really does mean the world to have you here and stay connected. If you'd like to continue this journey with me and improve your English speaking and listening, remember to follow, like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss any of the new daily content. Before we go, it made me wonder, what's one thing you'd love to change about your routine starting tomorrow? It's always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans in the comments is a wonderful way to practice expressing yourself in English and connect with others who are on a similar path. So please do share. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing. You've got this.